Designing a course is stressful. An online course may seem twice as difficult. How do you design learning activities that are successful and aren't seen as pointless busy work by students? We know the content we need to teach, but sometimes translating that into assignments or activities in an online environment can seem overwhelming. We're going to look at some things to keep in mind as you develop learning activities for your newly designed online course. Begin by looking at your outcomes and objectives. Your program may have clearly defined outcomes for your course. You need to start within those parameters. What needs to be represented in your class? The outcomes may be defined, but how you meet them and deliver the content is up to you. When you're looking at your course, you should start with the end in mind. At the end of the semester, what do students need to actively demonstrate to meet the objectives? You can think of tests, projects, papers, etc., that you can assign your students to meet those goals. When you chunk information this way, you're clearly defining learning paths for your students. We've all been in classes that were rushed at the end because the instructor had to cram information in at the last second to meet the outcomes. Early planning will help keep you and your students sane as you work on building your class. How does this all apply to an online class? If you're new to online learning, you'll need to rethink how teaching and learning will look in a fully online environment. If we're used to giving lectures in a face-to-face setting, how will that translate into your online class? You can still give recorded lectures, but is that the best way to teach, or will your students tune out? We will need to look at our students' needs, the content we deliver, and the purpose and goals for each assignment to determine what learning will look like. Consider our student demographics. How can we best teach our subject to students who may not have been successful in their K-12 past? If students are poor readers, should we only post text-based material? Is it a best practice to ask online students who are working and have families to log into their course to complete X amount of discussion board responses 4 days a week? There are no concrete answers to these questions. However, you should always thoughtfully plan your learning environment with your students in mind. When presented with new concepts, our students need some help or scaffolding to help them meet the expectations you have for them. How will you build tutorials for them? Will you provide finished examples for them to look at to guide formatting, etc.? Are your directions clear? Are your expectations? Do you use rubrics and allow your students to work off them so they can see what you're looking for? Instructors are often frustrated when students turn in subpar work, but if we don't communicate what we're looking for, are they really to blame? In good course design, your plan should define how you will support your students so they can produce high-quality materials. Have you ever gotten lost? Did you have directions that weren't accurate? Or did your GPS lie? One of the largest areas you'll be looking at is how your class content should be delivered. In an online environment, all materials should be well organized and clear. It needs to be consistent, so each week or learning module looks the same. Are the materials you're presenting applicable in the real world? Do they encourage high-level thinking? Do they represent multiple learning styles? In delivering your content, you need to determine how it will flow, how it makes sense, and how students will interact with the content. A good rule to keep in mind is to never have things buried more than 3 clicks deep. For example, if you have folders inside of folders, students have to drill down in areas where their work isn't located. It's a rabbit hole, and leads to great frustration for students. It can also be frustrating for you if you need to make modifications to an item and can't find it. Remember the KISS model. Keep it super simple. Let's apply this further. Here's what a basic traditional face-to-face class might look like in action. We have a lecture component, class interaction, and discussion time, and then we send students away with homework, readings, tests, etc. In an online class, the traditional order needs to shift to a broader environment. How you present material will also need to shift away from the lecture format into a variety of text and media-based options. Notice that you will need to plan and develop prompts for course interaction and collaboration activities. Your assignments may need to vary in length to capture depth of understanding. You may find yourself needing more small activities to gauge for understanding before students work on a large project. You'll need to examine how students will interact with text-based materials so they enhance learning and fit into the learning objectives. The amount of feedback you give students will also need to increase, so students will never need to guess how they are doing and how they can improve upon their work. Regardless of modality, the end goal of teaching is learning. We all want our students to be successful. We can help facilitate that through careful and deliberate course design.